Ooh, the most above average podcast in the galaxy.
Turn the light off, like your memory
Welcome back to the most above average podcast in the galaxy. I am your host, Coach Eric. Unfortunately, Josh could not be with us today. He is unfortunately in the emergency room in the burns unit. We wish him a speedy recovery, but yesterday, a lot of people don't know this, a random girl on the internet told him that he had small calves, so he is recovering from that burn. But today, we are blessed. We have our good friend, Chris Santamaria, with us from Crushing No Limits, also known for his podcasts of the Crushing No Limits. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So we share a lot of common ground outside of, even the fitness world. We're both casino aficionados, I think is the nice way of putting that.
Yes.
So the last couple, normally I don't go back to back, but I'm in the middle of two major casinos. And so one day we went to one day we go to the other. Sometimes, we go to the same one. Well, 2 days ago, we go with my wife, my grandmother, and I had a really, really good, successful day. Yesterday, I did not, but my wife and my grandmother were killing it. And we're driving back, and every once in a while, my wife will say something really funny. And last night was one of those. We were coming back, and it was already past midnight by the time we got home. And I was like, oh, dude, like, I got to get some sleep. Like, I'm not going to be able to go to the gym before I do this episode. She said the funniest thing. And she said it with a serious face. She goes, well, just take tomorrow as a rest day. It's shoulder day. There's no rest day.
It's not an option.
Silly wife.
It happens.
It happens. Yeah, you got to throw in jokes in there.
Oh, yeah.
I can't give her too much attitude. She's got the last 4 weeks left of this pregnancy, and then she'll move on to something else to complain about. So.
Yeah, we know the drill, man.
Yeah,
but that's super exciting for you guys.
Yeah, it's exciting. One more female to add to the clan here. Apparently that's all we got. Just girls. It's me and one boy dog. And then the other dog is a female. We got the 11-year-old. We got my wife. We got the new baby, which is a girl. I'm outnumbered.
Nothing you can do now.
No, that's why I put my office outside of my house, because I needed an excuse to go be safe somewhere else. Be like, oh, I got a work call, but I'm really just watching YouTube in my office.
Just need a little break.
Just need a little break. You need some guy time. So go out there and eat some bacon and talk about how great it is to be a man.
Oh, yeah. She comes in and you're watching Ronnie Coleman, Unbelievable, Well,
she gives me a bunch of attitude because I'm such a super nerd. I stopped playing video games years ago. I really enjoy playing video games, but it just was very time consuming. And so I'd have friends that be like, you got to block. Like we had a guest on here. He's one of my athletes. He's a professional streamer. That's literally his entire career. And he was like, you got to get back into playing games, like even just for an hour. And I'm like, I just don't possess the time frame for it. It's like my life is so go that between the coaching, the supplement company, the new business that we started, and just being a family person, like there's no downtime to be like, I'm going to turn my brain off for an hour. Like I have too many people that depend on me, which is such a blessing. I'm not complaining about it. I just don't possess the ability to play video games. So I'm always learning. And I always ask my people, I'm like, every week for your Friday check-ins, I want you to tell me something that you've learned. And I practice what I preach. So I'm always trying to learn something new. And I go out of town, and she sends me this text. She's like, I need you to send me the link to your podcast, which starstruck me, because I'm like,
yeah,
you don't even like listening to me talk, let alone you want to hear more of me. And she goes, no, you ding dong. It's for the baby, so the baby can hear you. Well, there is hours of audio and video of me all over the internets, sometimes doing podcasts, sometimes, doing seminars, whatever it may be. There's a lot of me doing really nerdy stuff. And she goes, I fear that when the baby's born, she's not going to know any nursery rhymes and that she's just going to repeat Neil deGrasse Tyson quotes. I was like, I don't think that's a bad thing, but
Hey,
we're exchanging, the Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet for explaining the history origins of the Gregorian calendar. Nerd.
that's funny, man.
But we've known each other for a long time, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, you got to hear this guy's story because it's so wild. Because I don't know very many people, if anyone, more dedicated to the craft of bodybuilding than you. And I want to hear your story, and I want to hear it from the beginning because it's not a normal story, and it's fantastic. So
Thank you.
Let's backtrack. So was there a moment when you got into bodybuilding when you were like, oh, like I'm a kid, damn, that's cool, like I want to do that?
Yeah. So originally I was in track and field. It's still my favorite sport to this day. Like me and Stephanie will watch all the meets. We'll watch the highlights if we miss it. And it was 1996, so I'm watching Michael Johnson break the 200-meter record, win the 400, the first man to ever do the double with the golden spikes. And I'm like, geez, this guy's pretty ripped. Like, this is not like your typical sprinter. Like, he's got a nice build. Like, I want to look like that. So I knew I wanted to excel at a high level in track and field. And I did, at the time I was, in 8th grade. Went to state my freshman year. And then my dad would take me down to the GNC down the street. And in the back, you'd see the magazine stands. And it was always kind of like that weird unknown territory. There's veins, there's guys in Speedos, and, there's buff women. And it's just like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know. This is just kind of like uncharted territory. And like, I'd always kind of like glaze over and like, huh. But I never picked one up. And we went down there one Super Tuesday, for the discount. And I saw Ronnie Coleman. He just won the 98 Olympia. So this was like in September of 98. And I see the front double bicep. He's on the cover. And I'm like, this is insane. I mean, how would anyone possibly look like this? And I kind of like, my dad was just kind of moseying around. And finally, I'm kind of like, I gotta just check this out. And I started like flipping through. And I'm like, this is just unbelievable. And I get to the spread where it's the 98 Olympia. And I'm like, how is this possible? And that immediately piqued my interest. I did actually buy that magazine. I felt so weird buying it. I'm like, oh, Dad, and this too. Here's this magazine. So he's kind of like, huh, all right, your total is this. And then, I took it home. I read it cover to cover. And it was actually, when I was flipping through, I saw Sean Ray's, his chest and tri, or his chest and ab routine. And I'm like, this is the guy. That's what I want to look like, and obviously it took Coleman for me to like get the magazine, finally purchase one. But it was more so like, I don't think I can attain that level, but I saw Sean and I'm like, I feel like this is like the perfect physique. Like, I want to look like that. So then, it was that Christmas a couple months later, my dad knew I was getting into it. So of course, like many people, he bought me the Arnold Encyclopedia, and I read that cover to cover, and, I was taking notes and I started training. But I didn't commit yet. So I was like, no, I'm going to do this track thing until I can't do it anymore, or maybe I'll succeed. And then bodybuilding will just be a hobby, but that's initially like what got me into it, what propelled me to like get involved in the sport. And I was still bodybuilding while I was running track. It just had to get to that crossroad where I'm like, wait a second, now I'm actually getting slower. My times are decreasing, and I'm like, I had to make a decision. And at that point, I was 17, and I'm like, well, I'm going to choose bodybuilding. That's what I'm going to do.
You beat me to it about the slowing down thing. You're moving mass around, and you're taking
Yeah.
oxygen away. It takes a lot of oxygen to move that kind of meat. So when you stopped running all the time, and when that was the main priority, and you switch it over into just gaining lean muscle tissue, did you have that explosion of like, okay, my body's so used to burning through all this food because I'm running, now I'm not running, and I'm still eating the same amount and just blub 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 blub?
Yeah, I kind of did. There was like an initial spike. I graduated, I was like 169 when I graduated. And then I pretty much had devoted like my life to bodybuilding after that. I knew as soon as school is over, I'm going to spend the entire summer bodybuilding. It's just going to be nothing but bodybuilding. So, and me and my brother were training. I took, I was writing down my workouts, writing down my weights and everything. And by the end of that summer, I was like 195, 196. So, I mean, you're right. Like when I stopped running, and I just stopped, like that was it. It was it. It was just a cold stop. And then it was just, gradually increasing the calories for, the next 3 months. So I was able to gain, a good amount.
Because you started with already, you're reading through the magazines, and we're reading Flex, we're reading Muscular Development. There was other ones too, but obviously those are the major ones that were out there
Mhm.
and doing well. Now you're reading the encyclopedia. Were you gravitating to some of like the minute things like the nutrition, but not so just like not so much the macros, like I got to eat protein, 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 protein. Were you already getting ahead of the curve with, hey, look, some of this food is going to change how my body responds? Were you able to get some of that information early on, or was that like a I learn as I go situation?
It was kind of learn as I go. Like I had like a small grasp of like what they were actually telling me and, what to do, how to be a bodybuilder in these magazines. But then I was kind of like, I was still, 17, 18, just naive. And I was like, oh, well, I just got to count the proteins. So, if we go to, Subway after and I get, 2 foot-long meatballs, there's 96 grams of protein there. Here's what I'm at for the day. So I still didn't like get it. I was still kind of like, it was still kind of like this sloppy bulking without me knowing it was sloppy. So it was like, maybe 60 to 70% was like clean food. And then the rest of it was just, my own fault, just not really knowing the difference that this is actually garbage food.
I think we all go through that. It was making me go through my own memory lane. I was like, oh man, I ate a bunch of chicken wings. It's like 4 pounds of sodium. Horrible.
Yeah.
Tasty, but horrible. But you're young. You
Yeah.
don't know
So
any
it was good.
Yeah, yeah. So now you're out of high school. You're in the bodybuilding world. It, how dedicated are you now? Are you already envisioning, oh, I'm going to step on stage, this is what I'm going to do, or is this still in the hobby stage?
Yeah. So I actually started my first prep when I was 18. I was still in high school. And it was shortly after Christmas. And my buddy at the time, his name was Mike. He was like literally like the epitome of the old school bodybuilder. I'm talking about like the cutoff, like the gray shorts, the gray
Oh yeah.
leg day shorts. I'm talking about the belt, the cinch belt. I'm talking about the boat neck cutout sweatshirt, with the big sleeves
Oh
and
yeah.
the hoodie.
That's the jam. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Mike, carrying the gallon, carrying the weight belt, his bag, and we were training together for the most part. And he's like, "You should do the Minnesota with me." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm in. Let's go." So I pretty much started the next day. Unfortunately, my first week, I really hurt my shoulder, like rotator cuff, and it wasn't doing anything stupid. It just training. So probably just being so amped up about my first prep. So I had to shut it down. I was about, a week or 10 days in, and I was like, all right, I got to heal the shoulder. It's like a 4 month. I couldn't train upper body for like 4 months.
Oh, wow.
So, I was like, it's okay. We're going to focus on legs. It's all good. And then when I got to college, I did my first show at 20.
So then you're going into it, you've got your training buddy, but do you have guidance, or are you doing self-coaching?
Self-coaching.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was in Rochester, Minnesota, and then I went to UMD Duluth. So we didn't really talk a whole lot until, I came home like for Christmas and stuff. But like I was just doing it solo, just like bodybuilding.com forums, like the Muscle Mayhem forum, Get Big. I was just like taking notes, and I'm like, okay, what do I do here? Taking my pictures. And back then too, like there was no real coaches or anyone that I could ask. So it was like,
You had your gym buddy. That was pretty much all we had.
that's it,
And,
and,
you prayed that he knew what he was doing.
yeah, I mean, I was broke as shit, like a typical college student. I could literally afford 2 supplements. So I was using the Dymatize ISO 100 whey, the big 5-pound because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And then I was using the knockoff Muscle Tech Cell Tech called Power Tech, which I believe was Twin Labs.
Okay.
And it had the same, 60
The
grams
same
of
ingredients.
dextrose. It was the same stuff, the alpha lipoic acid. And that's all I used the whole prep, just those 2 supplements. That's it.
And you kept those in the whole way through?
I kept them in the whole way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that first show go?
The first show was really good, man. I was hammering cardio. I was moderate to low carb. I was doing a carb rotation. And I got pretty damn lean. I wasn't shredded or peeled by any means, but I got pretty lean, respectably, natural for my first show. It was a good showing. And even looking back at the pictures, I'm like, this was actually pretty decent.
A pretty good look, yeah.
Yeah, this was pretty decent.
So you do your first show. Obviously, you had a good enough time that you wanted to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
What is the next step? When you look at, you're like, okay, I was good, but now I'm ready to really, go full throttle with this. What was that next moment like where you're like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. How am I going to get from A to B?
Yep. I've always been so competitive with, like the track and field background. I just hated to lose. I hate to lose. Even as a coach, I absolutely hate to lose, with my clients, as you understand. So like when I won like my class against one other guy, so I didn't really consider that like a big win. I beat one other guy. And then I want to say it was like 5th in the open, which, looking back now was pretty damn good for a 20-year-old in this level of competition. And the guy that won, like he was a known pro, a known natural pro. Like he was pretty legit. So getting 5th, I wasn't upset. It was more just so I just didn't like to lose. So after I'm like, all right, I just got to bring everything up. I got to bring the chest up. I got to bring the back up. And next time I'm going to come in even better.
How much time did you give yourself between that show and the next one? Was it something that you just dove straight into, or you took a step back and you're like, I got to put on some meat?
Yeah. I took 2 years off, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took 2 years off, and honestly, I didn't really nail the peak. I did it, I did it myself, of course, again for the second show. And I competed with a good buddy of mine, Chris Kirkhoff. So we did the same show, and I just didn't really nail the peak. I really didn't even get as lean as I did the first time. So, which was kind of strange to me. But, looking back at the pictures, it's kind of like I really didn't gain much size. and I really didn't get any leaner. Maybe I'm not even as lean as I was the first time. So it was just kind of another like bigger disappointment. And I'm like, I know I can beat some of these guys if I just take some time and really, level up, knowledge wise.
So what was the next step when you say that you needed to level up knowledge wise? Where do you go to? Because this is we're still in forum time. When you're when you're getting advice from essentially a bunch of ding dongs.
Yeah. I still just kind of did everything my own because, like, I know for sure, like, at that point, '06 was my third show. And gosh, the Mr. Minnesota, like the NPC Minnesota was huge, and I knew some of the guys, I knew of some of the guys competing because I would see they'd post on the forums and I'd be like, holy shit, like, there's no way I can beat that yet, you know? But, I just kept reading on the forums. I bought like all of Chris Santamaria's books, and I feel like, I learned quite a bit from that. I bought, of course, the legendary Dan Duchesne, the Underground Handbook. So I was learning, man. I was educating myself, and I had reached out to one coach kind of like in the area. And again, college student, like what he quoted me was almost like, it was almost like a quote of today where it's like, there's no possible way I can afford this, without
Oh,
selling my soul.
the whole prep cycle and everything that went with it.
No, no cycle, just the coaching.
Oh, okay.
The coaching, it was something outrageous. It was like, I don't even know, $12.50 a month or something. And I was like, I don't even make that, like I barely even make that as a college student.
I mean, even by today's standard, that's up there. And then you're talking, what, almost 20 years ago. That's big boy
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm sorry, man. There's just literally no way I can afford that. So I was like, all right, back to the drawing board. I'm just going to have to keep learning myself.
Yeah. I always tell people that you should go through it yourself and figure out the pros and cons and how things work, because that's going to make you a better coach. That's how I did it. I had this, similar situation. I didn't have a bunch of money just at my disposal, be like, oh, I'm going to hire this, midnight coach. I'm going to buy all the drugs that I want. You had to get really smart with understanding how to work as efficiently as possible. I needed to figure out how to train more efficiently. I needed to figure out how to eat more efficiently. That's how I got really good with the nutrition aspect of understanding the micronutrition underneath the macros. Like, okay, this chicken breast has X amount of protein, but what else does it have? These veggies have X amount of fiber, but what else is it doing to the body? And then once I was able to figure that out, then the drug part was relatively easy, because pharmacology is pharmacology. There's less variables with that. I mean, everyone responds differently to certain things, but I think nutrition is way more complex than just learning drugs.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, like, when I do my mentorship stuff, like with some of my people who want to become coaches themselves and whatnot, that's our first step. Is I need you to learn some of the crazy stuff that you never even thought about food. And then once you're able to understand what you can do, what is it? Dr. Scott Connolly said something years ago. He said that food is the most powerful drug that you can put in your body. And they couldn't be more, more truthful, because what you can do for healing the body, what you can do, like high stress people that develop high amounts of yeast in the body called candida, it's reversible. It's not a death sentence. You're going to have some gross side effects from having that much yeast in the body, but it is fixable. You don't need the Western medicine, harsh drugs that's going to come in there and kill the yeast and kill everything else inside the body. These are things that can be done with over-the-counter supplements, with some very selective herbs and well-rounded food. So long circle back. I'm with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're gaining muscle. We're getting a little bit older. We're hoping we're getting a little bit wiser, but we're still broke. Fast forward a little bit. What are you doing for work at this time?
So at this point, I am coaching a few people. So I was working at a nutrition store. let's see, nutrition store. I was coaching. So I started coaching like almost at the same time when I started my first prep at 20. And I took on my first female figure client. And we prepped for a show and everything. And like my first like 6 or 7 clients, I didn't charge. And then, at the time, my brother's girlfriend, she's like, gosh, you're kind of getting some following here. Like you got to charge for this stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I like helping people. And she's like, no, no, no. Like this is going to grow and grow. And I'm like, you got to charge something for this. This is valuable time and effort. So I was like, all right, I feel awkward about it. But then I started charging. And the funny thing was when I started charging, it's almost like I became more in demand. So then it's just like, well, they're telling their friends and, oh, he's got a great rate, this, $100 a month, this and that. So then it started to pick up, to where I probably had 10 to 15 clients somewhere around there. And then, I'm working full time at a nutrition place. So, I hadn't like made it, but I'm doing okay now,
Yeah. So you started this early, like I did. Like I started helping people when I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. I did it for free for a little bit longer, but with the same idea. There's a weird mindset that I wanted to ask you about. When you do it for free, when you're learning and you're developing too, I don't want to say that it's imposter syndrome, but not sure of what your value is. And I see that with a lot of these young guys that, not the Instagram and TikTok people like, oh, I stood on the stage once, I'm a coach. The people that truly want to be great at helping people.
Mm-hmm.
When you're establishing that value, it's really hard to generate an accurate number. One, everywhere is different as far as living costs go. I'm in Northern California. You're completely on the other side of the nation than I'm at. And, there's everyone in between. So,
Mm-hmm.
maybe $100 a month here would be great. And maybe $100 somewhere else would be way too much. People can't justify that cost. When you're establishing that at the beginning, do you have any recommendations to give the younger people? Like, how are you establishing your value? Because one, it needs to be worth your time. But two, if you're green and you don't really have the answers to everything, where does that really put you in a price bracket?
Right. I think you need to be just really upfront. And I've had younger coaches approach me about some similar advice too, like you were talking about. And I met a cool guy at Los Campeones, and he would just tell his people. He only had like a few people, and he would just tell them like, "Hey, I'm literally just getting started. I am not an expert, but I am going to put in the effort to help you, and I'm doing this course and this course. So like, there is continuing education there, and I think." From a price point standpoint, I think someone can understand that and be like, okay, I'm probably getting a fair price for what I'm actually getting. To whereas like you said, the imposter syndrome, that's a different story. But I like the fact that this guy was really upfront with this is what you're getting. I'm not up here yet, but I want to be up here someday. You know?
And I always respect the honesty. Like, we had someone come out and, do some yard work for us. And
Mhm.
he flat out, he was like, I'm new to this. I have a normal job. I can only do this on Mondays. That's my day off from my normal job. Um, but I will be here and I will give it my all.
Mhm.
I was like, you know what? He flat out told me that he doesn't have any experience doing this, but he's trying to make a better life for himself. So we hired him, and he's been
Good.
great. But I
Yeah.
respected that honesty versus the guy that we interviewed like an hour before, and he was like, "Oh, amigo, I have like 500 houses that I do." And I'm like, "I can tell you're not going to give a shit about my house."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No,
So
yeah, I totally respect that.
yeah, yeah. I always tell people, like, good or bad, just be honest with me because one, I'm always honest. Honestly, because I can't remember the lie. I have too much shit going on. If you're like,
Yeah.
you remember that thing you did? Nope. Was it documented? Yep. All right, then just whatever the paper says, because that's how it happened.
Right.
All right. So we're coaching, we're working full time. We've got you're in a house now, you're in an apartment, you have roommates. How's this living situation working?
Apartment now. Yeah. And, like a house wasn't even on the horizon. It's just kind of just bouncing from apartment to apartment.
So
Yeah.
you're happy. You're
Oh, yeah.
lifting weights, you're living the bodybuilding dream.
Yeah. I'm living
Yeah.
it, man. I'm working in a nutrition store. I get a discount on my supplements, and I'm like, I'm helping people. I'm like, this is it. Like, this is great.
Yeah. I I used to hold the sign like with the little arrow thing. So I lived at my parents' house real briefly during like my college time frame,
Hmm.
and I worked 3 jobs, and still went to this community college. And he was like, I can either pay you whatever it was. It was like $7 an hour. He was like, or I'll give you $15 an hour worth of store products. And I was like, so that's a no brainer. I'm getting all the protein, bro. How long you want me to stand out here with this sign?
Yeah. No brainer.
Yeah. Shout out to Don Arnold for that. Okay. Let's jump forward. We're competing, but now we're starting to get, we're going to go for that pro card.
Hmm.
When you start really getting into that level of competitiveness, was there a moment in one of the preps that you looked at yourself and you're like, that's not me. I look phenomenal.
I'm trying to think. So there was a point, where it's funny because now, part of our slogan is we bring the conditioning. That's definitely part of our strong suit when it comes to coaching and a team. And the OGs will know, but like conditioning was something I struggled with a lot. It was almost to the breaking point where, show after show, people would come over, after the show, be midweek, the week after the show. And without me asking, people would be like, man, Santamaria, if you only came in condition, that show would have been yours. And it was just like, I just hear this over and over. I felt like the Victor Martinez of the local level, the NPC. And I just got so sick and tired of it that I'm like, that's it. That's it. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to check more boxes. I'm literally going to do this until I find the solution. So I found the solution in 2013. My buddy Bill, he convinced me to do the Atlantic States, and that was my first win. So I finally got shredded, and I had deleted social media for 2 years because like I hated social media. I literally came in as a dark horse. No one knew who the F I was. There was 22 guys in the light heavies. Probably 40% of that class now are pros. So, I mean, you know how big the Atlantic States is. So like for me coming, an absolute nobody from Minneapolis to come in and sweep was like, it was like a huge eye opener for me. And I remember, taking pictures with my brother and Bill after the show, and people were coming up to me, like big time people, judges, like, hey, I'm going to be at Junior Nationals in 2 weeks. Are you going to be there? You're doing the show, right? And I was like, no, I don't think so. That's not on the plan. And I remember one guy, he came up to me and he was a judge and he's like, you know what this means, right? And I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, every Atlantic States winner, they all turn pro. And I was like, really? Holy shit. And that was kind of like a moment where I was like, I had always like dreamed of it, but that was the moment where I'm like, I think this is within reach. It was like that moment.
That's super cool. I remember, and I don't think we ever talked about this on your podcast, but I watched every David Bay video for muscular development. I watched every interview from Dave Palumbo. whatever bodybuilding show had any media coverage, I watched it. I watched every single interview, even with the people that, that was the only time they'd ever be interviewed. And I
Sure.
remember they interviewed you at the most competitive light heavy lineup pretty much in
Yep.
history.
Mhm.
And fast forward, and I remember thinking about this. It was like the first time I met you in person, which is a handful of years ago. And I was like, I know I've seen that guy somewhere before. I know I've seen it. And then we went back and I watched that video. I was like, son of a bitch, I do know him.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do the Atlantic State. What's the next chapter when you go for the pro card? Now, this is when, bodybuilding is just prime.
Yep.
Every national show is stacked. Every pro qualifier is stacked. You could move the top 10 around and no one would be upset because everyone just brought it.
Right. So here's where my career takes a dip, a big dip. So leading up to the Atlantic States, this was probably about 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. I go to the restroom and I see some blood in the toilet on the toilet paper. And I'm like, did I eat anything red today? I couldn't remember because it's prep, And then I was like, just disregard what, it's normal. And then, I went to the restroom later that day and kind of the same thing happened. And I'm like, I don't know. This maybe isn't normal, but I'm like, okay, no big deal. We're in prep. I'll deal with this after the prep. No problem. So for anyone watching, if you see that, don't deal with it after the prep. Go see a gastroenterologist, go to the ER. They'll run your test. They'll figure out what's going on. So when I got home from Atlantic States the next day, I was incredibly sick. I mean, just like everything is running through me. And I'm like, gosh, it's probably just like the dehydration. It's probably just the flight, just the flight back. I'm like, this is just the post-show blues, like this is going to pass. No problem. So kind of spent that Sunday really sick. Monday, I was doing phone sales at the time. So I'm no longer at the nutrition. I'm doing my coaching. I was doing phone sales, which, I did for over a decade. And I get up that morning and again, I'm like pretty sick. I've hit the restroom like 5, 6, 7 times. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know if work's going to happen, but I'm like, I'm dedicated, just as dedicated to work as bodybuilding. So I'm like, I'm going in. It's not going to slow me down. And I get on the phone, get on my station, put my headset on. I start dialing for the day. And already I got to take like breaks. And like now I'm literally in the company restroom for like 2 hours.
Good
And I'm
Lord.
like, okay, all right, something's wrong. Clearly I'm not going to make it through work. So finally, when I got composure, I had to tell my boss, like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm really sick. I got to go. So I go home and now it's to the point where it's just like pure blood. It's just straight blood when you look in the toilet. And now I'm worried because now it's not just a tiny bit. Now you look down and it's just bright red blood. And I'm also going at like an alarming rate to where I don't even want to step on the scale because I know I've lost a ton of weight, you know?
Are you in pain during this time too, or you just feel blah?
No pain, no pain. I just feel weak from just the dehydration. But overall, I feel good. And that's where I was kind of like, well, I feel good. I feel normal. I'm just going to the bathroom and there's blood. So, what happened was it's kind of silly, but I get up and I'm like, all right, there's no way I can eat anything. And I'm eating perfectly clean, chicken and rice, eggs and rice, steak and rice. Nothing's changed. And I'm to the point now where I know if I eat, I'm going to be terribly sick. So I'm like, okay, here's what I'll do. I'm going to fast through work 8 hours. I'll take a caffeine pill because I'm going to need the energy for 8 hours with no food. And then when I get home, no problem. I'll just make up all those calories and I'll be good. It'll be like intermittent fasting, right? So I take my caffeine pill, I throw on my headset, and I start dialing. And I made it through maybe 1 or 2 days like that. And then, of course, I get home, I have my chicken and rice meal, and I'm in the bathroom the rest of the night. And I'm like, I'm starting to
And
worry.
still blood coming out.
Still blood. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So finally,
So you suffered like this for like a solid week.
it was about a week, almost a full week. Yeah. And like my dad, he's a doctor. He was an anesthesiologist. So he's in Rochester. And like my dad is overprotective, love him to death. I didn't want to tell him because I knew I'd have to I'd have to pay the piper by then. So finally, I'm in bed now. I've lost who knows how much weight. And now I'm to the point where I can't even get out of bed. I mean, I'm like stumbling to the bathroom. I'm spending an hour in the bathroom and then I'm crawling back to bed. So I'm like, man. So I call dad, mom and dad come, they drive up. It's about an hour. So they drive up. And by that point, I was so malnourished that both my mom and dad, they're literally carrying me to the vehicle, like shoulder to shoulder. And then, I get in the car and I'm like, man, I'm like really sick. Like something is clearly wrong. So I get to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Of course, they run 100,000 different tests. They're ruling out a bunch of stuff. And they have this huge medical team, because it's the Mayo Clinic. So there's like, every morning there was like 12 interns and doctors, this whole team of people that come review my case and everything. And finally the doctor comes in and she has the pictures and she's like, Chris, I've been doing this for how many years? She's like, I have never seen a case of ulcerative colitis as severe as yours. So they officially diagnosed me at that time. And she shows me the slides and my colon, I mean, it literally looks like Swiss cheese. There's just holes everywhere. And I'm looking at this and, with no medical knowledge, I can even see like there's literally holes in my colon. So finally, they gave me prednisone. They gave me a couple different medications to see if they could calm it down. And it was after a few days of being in the hospital, finally the two surgeons come in and they said, well, we're going to start you on this biologic. It's called Remicade. And he's like, it's probably not going to work, but if it does work, you'll get to go home in a few days. And he's like, if it doesn't work, by tomorrow, we're going to have to talk about removing your colon.
So they come out and they drop this crazy bombshell. Obviously, this was not in your forecast of what you thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
When you go there and your parents take you to the hospital, does your dad have any kind of idea of what may be going on? Or he's just like in super dad mode, just get this kid to the hospital and we'll deal with whatever the possibilities are?
I think he probably knew. I think he maybe just didn't want to like scare me at all.
Sure.
He knows. So like, and they were with me the whole time, mom and dad, and like, I remember when the surgeons came in, as soon as they left, he's like, Chris, you're not doing that. Like, don't get your colon removed. And at this point, like I'm in so much agony that I'm like, Dad, just take it out. Like, I'll do whatever. I'm like, I just want it out, So if you fast forward, the Remicade, it did work. It didn't feel like it worked. Now, granted, remember, I just won the Atlantic States. I'm on top of the world. In my mind, I'm like this close to going for a pro card, what's next? You know, like maybe I can do junior nationals and then level up from there. Maybe I'll do nationals that year. And now it's literally rock bottom. So I finally got to go home. They said, you're going to have to do this biologic infusion every 4 weeks. This should, keep it manageable. And so my dad takes me home. And remember, I just went on stage at like 192, 193. When I went home with clothes on, I was 150 pounds
Good Lord.
in not even a full week.
God.
Yeah.
So did the doctors have an idea of what may have caused this? Because, normal colitis, when you've got inflammation of the intestines, is a relatively easy thing to keep at bay. But are you, because you're working a regular job too during this time, are you just stressed out of your mind and it just went unmanaged? What's going on like in personal life that may have attributed to something like this?
That's a great question. And I was really straightforward with the team of doctors and everything. Because that's what I started to wonder, like, what am I taking? Like, well, is any of this stuff like, is the protein powder causing it? Is anything, I told them everything I'm taking. And they're like, Chris, nothing you're taking is at fault. He's like, it is what it is. And they knew my medical history. So there's no colitis in my family on either side. The biggest thing in my family on my mom's side is just a little bit of lactose intolerance that I have, my brothers have. That's it. Like, you go up the family tree and there's nothing. He's like, Chris, that's just the cards that you were
It's
dealt.
the card you got dealt, huh? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Man, that's so wild.
Yeah. Because I was like, somewhere along the line, someone's got it. And then, mom and dad had confirmed, like, nope, no one has anything like this.
You're the chosen one.
Yep.
So I know we're going to get into some of the other surgeries because Lord knows there's quite a few of them. That's surgery number 1. You get to go home. They say you got to do these infusions. Bodybuilding aside, how does this pan out for your just overall health? Because now, obviously this takes you off the stage for quite a bit of time. It changes the direction of how you can eat. I mean, there's so many things that go in with all these procedures that you're about to start going through.
Mm-hmm.
What is the next, uphill battle, as we'll call it?
Yeah. So at this point, actually, I still haven't had any surgeries. So I just had the infusion, which was every 4 weeks all year. And it worked incredibly. I mean, it was like a godsend. It got me as close to normal as possible. So I just had to watch just excessive inflammatory stuff like Saturday for a cheat meal. I just had to be a little extra careful that I'm not having too much dairy, too much gluten. Not that it wasn't really in my plan before anyway, but I just had to be like more aware of stuff.
Sure.
And then of course now having an autoimmune disorder, you have to be aware of, like you said, the stressors. Like, do I feel stressed? Do I need like some downtime? Do I need to, listen to music, go outside, all that stuff? So I was good. And then I ended up gaining all the 50 pounds in 1 year. I gained it all back. It was like almost like nothing happened. And then I'm like, this isn't going to stop me. Like, I'm going to win. I have a goal to attain. So I competed the next year, 2014. I did the Iron Games in California and I won the overall as a light heavy. So prep was just smooth sailing. It was one of the best preps. It was great. And then after that, it's kind of funny because like another hurdle comes and I got 2 types of food poisoning after that show. Again, ended up in the hospital for like 3-4 days. And I had already registered for the 2014 Nationals in Miami. So, because it's like at this point, I got to go for this. Like, I got a pro card that I'm going for. I have a goal, and I'm in the hospital, and I'm like, there's just no way. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I get released. They give me a couple different medications. They sort of help. I go to the gym the first day, and I'm like, nope, I can't even complete the workout. So I left. Day 2, I completed the workout, and I'm something like 10 days out from the show, from Nationals. This would be my first, like pro qualifier. And after, like, once we got until Thursday, Friday, I was like, I'm in. Like, I know that in my head, with the setbacks, I'm not in the best position to win, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to go through it. We're going to show up as best as we can. Let the chips fall where they may, right? So I go to Nationals. I want to say I was 12th in 14. I think I was 12th. I actually showed up with a pretty good look. You could tell. I mean, I could show you the picture. You could tell right away, like, oh yeah, it looks like you were in the hospital for a week, like really good overall look. Just kind of a flatter.
Just that little bit off.
Just a little bit, like I was crisp. It wasn't like grainy hard, but I was crisp, just kind of downsized.
Sure.
But overall, it was a good look.
Right on.
Yeah.
So then, now we're at 2014 Nationals.
Mm-hmm. Next
competition is just right around the corner. What's the next one?
The next one was where I, for myself is like when I made it, like you were talking about with David Bay. So it's 2015, all systems go, pedal is to the floor. Off season is phenomenal. Like we are not fucking around at all. Not a meal was missed, not a training session. I got a good buddy, a good training partner, a couple of them now, and they're just pushing me to the max. It's like, I could feel that they wanted this like just as bad as I did. So I feel like that was really a key factor in, part of my success. And so I'm preparing for North Americans, and we get there and there's 50 guys in the class. Like you were saying, David Bay said it was the most competitive class they've ever seen, and I get called out in the top 4. And at that point, I didn't care. I'm like, I'm on stage, I'm hitting it, and I'm like, I don't care if I win or lose. I've made it. This is it. So I'm like, whatever happens today, I've made it, and everyone was cheering for me back home. Obviously I didn't win the show. Looking back, we always say pictures and videos don't lie. In my head, I won the show. I feel like I won the show.
Yeah, and shows like that are just so heavily stacked with great competition, because it wasn't like, oh, you got 4 guys that look really good and the rest of the guys are kind of like whatever. Everybody looked good. And that's the kind of competition that you want as an athlete. When you win a show and, you beat one other guy, or you go to a small local show and, there's 11 people for the whole show, so everyone is automatically nationally qualified.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of pride in that. Like, cool, like I got my trophy, or the girl's like, I got my little crown, whatnot. But it's not like, oh, I went to war. There was no battle. That's a real battle.
Yeah.
And I remember, and you showed me some of your progress pictures with it.
Yeah.
Your shape is fantastic. Like I can see like the picture of you behind you in your frame.
Thank you.
It's always been incredible structure. And so when you think about it, you're like, wow, someone with structure like that, someone with gigantic fucking arms, you've got all the things that need to be there for that pro. And you're like, man, I'm right there. Like I said, you could have tossed the top 10 around and no one would have complained because everyone looks so good. So you're there, you're on cloud 9, now you're famous. Now David Bay has talked to you. Now you're known.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, we're right there. And granted, we got to take a step back and look at the times.
Sure.
There's not a whole lot of pro cards being awarded at this time. It's not like, now when you go to the universe, they're giving out over 130 in one particular show.
Mhm.
we're talking just a handful of pro cards for the entire year. And it's even worse
Right.
for the Canadians. They got one.
Yeah.
So we're there. You're chomping at the bit. You're so close. What's next? So now we're in 2015.
Yeah. 2015. So I ended up doing that nationals, and I was like, I'm literally the next in line. I am the front runner for this show. If we fast forward, I got 10th at that show. And there was, of course, some questionable judging, as there are for a lot of shows. But I basically didn't really nail it for a few years. 2016 USA's, 2017 when I met Stephanie, that was probably my second best look like ever. And I was battling colitis the whole time. So like, I know you're very familiar with this, Eric, but like, for the viewers that are familiar with this, I had one of my absolute craziest looks on stage, and I had to run prednisone the entire prep.
Ah.
So at that point, I had been on prednisone for years, which is anti-catabolic, like it's catabolic. So it eats up muscle, you know, and
And this is still all part of that normal treatment.
this is part of it. So at this point,
Are we still in the infusion range, or we're done with that now?
we're done with that.
Okay.
So what happened was my body had developed antibodies to all the infusions they had. So this was 7 different drugs that were approved for ulcerative colitis. So one by one, eventually I was like going through all 7, and we all think the same thing. We're like, oh, well, that could never happen to me. And, once we had gotten to 4, my doctor, he's amazing, Dr. Phelan, one of the best doctors I've ever worked with. And at 4, he's like, Chris, we should start thinking about maybe taking out your colon. And again, even with everything I had gone through at that point, you still think, well, I got 3 more. Like, that's never going to be me. Well, turns out we ran through the 3 more. So we fast forward to, this is 2019, and now I've gone through them all. I've used all my cards. So at this point, I'm like, there's no other option. I'm going through a severe flare. By this point, I've lost, 42 pounds in a month. And I'm like, it's like starting back from zero. Anyone with colitis can relate. So we scheduled the surgery, and it's New Year's Eve 2019. And at this point, people are asking me, because it had been scheduled for weeks, and they're like, are you like nervous? Are you scared? Like, and I was like, I can't wait for this day. Like, let's go, like, get this out. I want to like get to the next stage. So I get the surgery. They remove my entire colon. It's, a 7 to 8 pound organ. They take out all my rectum, and then they put me with an ileostomy bag, a colostomy bag, like some people know. It's a poo bag.
Yeah.
And I tell people, having that, if you've never seen or been around it, there is nothing that comes to mind for me that is more degrading than having a shit bag. It's like constantly here. You're always like thinking like, can he see that? Can people see that? And then like when you go to the bathroom, you have to, you unscrew this thing, and you have to like push down your waste product. And I'm telling you, Eric, the smell is unlike anything you can ever imagine. It's like the worst, like truck stop bathroom smell multiplied with like dead carcasses for like 20 years mixed together. So like going out, it's like
Febreze is not strong enough for that.
Oh no. And it's funny. There's a story on that. They sell these these fragrance drops. So you have the bag, you got your little drops. They're supposed to completely deodorize the smell so you can go in public and feel like a normal person. So they don't work at all. I tried several different brands, and it's like, you go like, I think people take normal things for granted. So it really puts in perspective, because it's like, you don't want to leave the house. I didn't leave the house for months and months and months, and you have to recover. So you have to recover for 3 months before you get approved to have the bag off.
Oh, wow.
And it's the most debilitating thing. Like I said, you go to a public restroom and like, all right, you hear the guy in the next stall, but it's like you hear this like weird dripping, and then the smell, like you can smell it in the whole bathroom. I mean, it'll kill an army. So it's like, it's really degrading. I don't get embarrassed hardly ever. And I never felt embarrassed. I just felt like just degraded as a human. So like, if you fast forward, they call it the takedown surgery. So what that means is they take the bag off, they reconnect what's called a J pouch. So it's an artificial, they make it what's left of your small intestine into like a J, and that's how you go to the bathroom normally. So they take the bag off, you have the J pouch, it's inside obviously, and then they close it all up, and then you can't lift for, it's about 2 months. So at this point, I've been off the gym it's been about 5 months. So it's really the longest break I've ever had. No training.
I gotta ask, it's not a conventional question, but I know
Sure.
there's weird people out there that are gonna wonder this, me
Mhm.
being one of them. So you're using the bag,
Mhm.
and then you don't have to use the bag.
Mhm.
Is there like a weird, like riding a bicycle feeling, having to wipe your butt again after taking so many months off from not having to do that? Is it like do you have like that Aladdin song, like a whole new world?
No, that's actually a really great question. It's so weird. And I guess when you really think about it, it's not as weird as you think. But to answer your question, yes. When you take the bag off, like the first few times, you'll sit down on the toilet, and it's almost like your body doesn't quite know like what to do. So yeah, I would say the first week or so, it's kind of like adjusting to what like your new normal is, which is, it's not even close to normal at all.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm going to make the safe assumption that
Mhm.
the internal feeling of, doing like the I got to go to the bathroom dance is much different too.
Yeah, what I tell people is it's literally, and I still battle this today to this day. It's like a time bomb. You set the bomb. When you eat, most of the time I can't make it through a full meal without having to use the restroom. So it's not like where, you're driving and, you hear your buddy like, "Oh, I'll stop at the next stop." There's no stop at the next stop. It's when you got to go now,
It's
it
right
literally
then.
means right now. I have to go right now. So that's a massive adjustment for people. I think what people don't understand, which I still battle Stephanie to this day, but when you're planning an event outside of your home, it's like, okay. And again, I would never expect anyone to think like this, because unless you've had the surgery, you wouldn't really know this. But it's like, okay, where are we going? How long are we going to be there? I'll have to plot where the public restrooms are. Do I know if that restaurant has one stall or multiple stalls? Do I have a second option if both stalls are full? So it's just a lot of like fear
Planning.
and anxiety and planning as to like going out. That being said, I feel like I've done a really good job, especially within this year, of just facing the fear, getting out. Like, I'm not going to let it control my life. We're going to go to Italy. We're going to go to all the shows. Like, we're going to go to the concerts. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to skip and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask because you travel a crazy amount just like I do, which
Yes.
I tell people, I'm like, it sounds like I'm complaining, but it's not. Like, it is such a blessing to be able to do this as a career. Like, I get paid to do what I love. I get paid to help people, which is even better. And I get to
Mhm.
travel the world with my friends. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a cooler thing. But,
Right.
when you're talking about your particular situation, you got to think about, I'm at the airport, where are the bathrooms? I'm on the airplane. What if there's turbulence? Like, are you just gonna,
Mhm.
pray and make it in there? And you've got, the unknowns, especially if you travel to somewhere, that you've never been before, it's hard to map stuff like that out. You go to Italy, or, I use Jersey as an example all the time because it's such a unique place. The road system in New Jersey is absolutely atrocious. And if you make a
Yeah.
wrong turn, that 15-minute drive turns into a 2-hour drive really quick. So you got to
Yeah.
be really diligent about what you've got going on for your planning. And I feel that you've done an incredible job with that because, your whole life has changed. And,
Mhm.
now you just have to be very aware of all of your surroundings way more than the normal person. So hats off to you because I know that's not an easy
Thank
task.
you. Thanks, Van.
So we've got the JPAC. Where are we at now? This is 2019.
Yeah. So 2019. So now everything's off. Um,
And now there's no medication for this, right? Since
there's
they've
no
removed.
medication.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no medication. Some people still do medications, but I didn't really need any. So now I'm like, this whole time, even since 2013, my first rock bottom, the goal has never been clouded. It's always been in straight focus. There's just been many obstacles along the way. So now it's like, okay, I haven't trained in 5.5 months. Day one, here we go. It's leg day. Here we go. We're still chasing. So now, of course, I have to qualify again because I'm not nationally qualified anymore. So I do the Bruce City, which was monumental for me. I win the overall. And, it was my first time on stage after a few years, after like 3 years. So, I think for me, it was more of just proving it to myself, really.
I still got it
Like,
and I'm still hungry.
yeah, like I knew, but it's like, well, you still got to go through, you still got to do it, you know? And at that point, of course you hear like, oh, he's done. He's never coming back from that. I heard the shit talking and it doesn't faze me. I'm not one that's going to get motivated by shit talkers because I'm like, I know what I'm capable of, you know? So I went on, I win the overall. And then of course now I go to Universe and I get fifth at the Universe in the light heavies. And I'm like, ever since like 2015, 2017, like I'm not getting the nod as I should in a light heavy. I'm just not getting the nod. I don't know why. So I had a lot of fuel, a lot of, anger built up just from like a poor placing. And it was a pretty good look. It wasn't my best look, but it was a damn good look. And I remember walking off stage and, like I was talking about the other day, my brother and Stephanie, they come out to greet me at the Universe. And like, before they can say anything, I'm like, I'm going to do the middle weights, Masters Nationals. I'm dropping the middle weights. And they're like, wait a second here. Like, let's think this through here. So, that night, we talk about it. I divulge my plan of somehow dropping 20 some pounds, squeezing into the 176 and then carving up from there. So if we fast forward, I do make the middle weights in 2021 at the Masters and I won handily. So it was such a good look, man. Like maybe my third best look ever. It didn't have the pop or the fullness that I used to, especially from you dropping down. You can never really, I don't think you can ever really replicate when you have to drop that much.
No,
Personally,
when you deplete that much, it's too hard to fill
no.
back out. Even with added goodies, like, I mean, Lord knows I'm guilty of this. We've definitely done this in the past with quite a few people. You got to suck them down aggressively, and you're like, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna load you, and we're gonna use insulin, and it's gonna be great. And you get close, but it's
Yeah,
not the same.
it's never the same. I agree 100%, man. So, before, it's like I just kind of knew, they called me to the center and I'm like, I got this shit. Like, this pro card is mine. Today is my day, and then I'm getting ready. I was just completely unfazed when they announced the middleweight winner. I was like, okay, as it should be. This is what I expected based off the pictures and call outs. And then, I'm lining up with the other gentleman for the overall. And I'm like, this is it. I did it. I made it. I'm going to turn pro here in a few minutes. And we go out and, of course, at the Masters, it's the top 4 in the overall. And they announce, and then I'm not in the top 4, and I'm in just absolute utter disbelief and disgust. So they had given it to the welterweight. No, the bantamweight. They had given it to the bantamweight, and then, the super and all along, which it's like, we can go back as far in history. You and I both know it's always the super, the heavy, the light heavy, and the middleweight. The top 4 always turn pro. That's how it goes. There's no, it's like an equation, you know?
It
So
wasn't your day that day.
wasn't the day. So, we go back to the drawing board. It's 21 now. And, I'm full into off season and I'm like, all right, that's okay. I'm gonna win it in 22 because I'm just gonna do the same thing. Do I want to make middles again? No, but I'm just gonna be even bigger now. We're just gonna replicate it and be even better, right? So we're at Stephanie's her work Christmas party, and just another Christmas party. They have crock pot chicken, and I'm eating just chicken, rice, all this stuff. We go home, and I have this like just awful stomach ache. Oh my gosh, this is like, oh, this is bad. Like, I wonder, and I was like, no, the chicken was cooked. That's all I ate there. So I'm like, okay, it's not the chicken. Take some Alka-Seltzer. That usually does the trick for me. Take some Alka-Seltzer, try to go to bed, close my eyes, and I'm like, man, this thing is bad. Like, I don't know if I can get rid of this. This is one of the worst I've ever felt. So I'm like, that's it. After like an hour, I go downstairs and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe there's a blockage. I don't think so, but I'm like, it might be a blockage.
But
So
something's not right.
something's not right. So I go downstairs, I do an enema, and nothing comes out. So I'm like, oh no, like this is a blockage. So go upstairs, tell Stephanie, I'm like, I'm going to the emergency room. It's a blockage. She's like, okay. So we go. They run, million tests as normal. They do the blood work. And I'm at the emergency center now because it's 1 a.m. or 2. And they say, the emergency surgeon comes in and he's like, all right, Chris, took a look at your CT scan. He's like, you have a blockage. So we're going to do a couple things. 2 things are going to happen. We're going to put you under and we'll either sort the blockage out or you're going to wake up with an ileostomy bag. That's what he tells me word for word. And I said,
What great options.
yeah. So I said, all right, doc, do what you got to do. They put me under. I wake up. the first thing I do when I wake up, I'm like, oh no, oh no. And I feel the bag again. And it's like, oh, it's like my worst nightmare coming true. I'm like, and then I pull up the rope and I'm like, no, this didn't happen again. So lightning struck twice. I got the blockage, which maybe 1 in a million, but I had to have the bag again.
So you get the bag for the second time. How long do you have to have it for this time?
So this time, because it was the second time, I had to have it for 5 months instead of the 3. So they really needed to be sure that the inflammation had gone down before they actually removed it. So yeah, it was another, 5 something months off. And then, I mean, there was a good chance, like, thank God for my doctor, because like he came into the rescue, because the ER doc, like, I was left with a terrible scar, and like my doctor wouldn't have done that. So they're just there to just fix it and get out, right? On to the next patient.
Sure.
So I don't fault him, but my doc had, he's like, you got like really, really lucky that we didn't have the bag. So he's like, we had to cut out basically almost all of your small intestine now. But he's like, we cleared the blockage. And, here I'm thinking like, how is this lucky? But that was it, so basically I had to do the same thing all again. The only thing is now when they had removed the bag, I was left with, I guess technically you can't call it a hernia because I have no intestine left, but I was left with like a pocket where, like a puffer fish, when you breathe, it would pop out. So I had to have that fixed. So it added another additional surgery.
What is the remedy for something like that? Do they treat it the same like where they do the mesh?
They were going to do the mesh, and at the very last second they decided not to, for whatever reason. I still to this day think they should have, because I had to have another one to fix it.
What did they do? They just pulled everything down and stapled it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so now it's like I had gone through this all again. So the only positive was that I had been through it before, so I knew like, well, I've done this already. I know I can do it again,
So now the bag, this recovery, now we're in 2022.
Now we're in 22. So now I'm all cleared. Of course, I train the second I get cleared to train, I'm in. Here we go again. I started doing a lot more content, like me and Stephanie started filming, and things are going great. Like, things are really going great. I had so much like off time that my body just responded like almost like never before. I mean, it just bounced back like crazy. I was just growing at an alarming rate. I was deep into off season. I was lean. I was around 230, with abs and everything. And I'm like, this is it. I mean, I'm going to be 40. I'm like, no one's going to beat me at 40 in this class. Like, it's highly unlikely. So
Yeah, because this is the year that I meet you, and then this is the year
yeah,
you ended up with like this whole like phantom like aura around the name. Like, oh, Chris is gonna be here. Chris lost all this weight. Chris had all these surgeries. You got to meet this guy, Chris. Chris. I'm like, I got to meet this guy, Chris.
yeah.
So we're back in the gym. You're big. You're lean. Everything's going swimmingly, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
What now? What is the plan of attack?
Yeah. So once again, just like 21, now I got to qualify again. So, yeah, so I got to do a show. So I was like, I'll do the Steve Kuklo Classic. I've had a few clients win that show, and we've always had a good experience. So I'm like, I'm gonna do the Kuklo in June, and then I'm gonna hit the universe and hopefully seal the deal. You know.
So when you go for your warm-up show,
Mhm.
what are you weighing, and how hard are you pushing for that? Were you going full bore for that, or are you holding it back at like a 90, knowing that you'll do the hardcore peak for the universe?
I was still going at like 95. I think for me it was like this is personal. Like I'm coming in this with a vengeance. I've had this denied for so many years now that I'm like, I'm coming in and no one's gonna beat me. I'm coming in at almost 100%. So I go down there, we fly, and we stay with our good friends, the Mackeys, Katrina and Luke, and we're posing, we're doing all this stuff, and like it is what it is. I didn't nail it. I did not nail this peak, you know.
And what are you weighing for this one?
So I was, let's see, yeah, because I was light heavy, so I came in at like 197 for this one
For the Kluko?
for the Kuklo. Yeah, so I'm like back right there. Obviously, with all the surgeries, I'm probably never gonna replicate like in my prime North American days. But I'm like, this is pretty damn good, and it's certainly good enough to chase a pro card. So I come in, it's a pretty good look. I didn't nail the peak, and I was kind of pretty nervous, just kind of leading up, because I'm like, I got to do this thing, I got to win this thing, and then the next week we fly out to Jersey, and then we really battle. So it's kind of funny now because I joke with a good friend of mine. You probably know Zach. He's a big time judge. He judges all the East Coast shows, but like they give me third place at the Kuklo, and like he's like, "Who's judging?" And I exchange a few names. He's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "That's absolute bullshit." So I got beat basically at the Kuklo, and like even Steve was rooting for me. Like Steve was commenting on my stuff. I was talking with Steve, and I was like, Steve knows me. I've brought clients to his show. My clients have won his show. I'm like, if anyone's got a shot, like this thing is mine, you know? But it is what it is. They give
Is
me
what it
third
is.
place, right? And I go to the universe, and now I'm like, now it's the same plan. I'm gonna suck down to the middleweights, and at 40, I was like, I don't think anyone's gonna beat me at this time. So making weight was absolutely vicious. It was just vicious. I mean, I had done it before, but it was just tough this time. Like I want to say 11 pounds up, like weigh-in day. So me and Stephanie, we go watch the show, and like after our client had gone, I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, like I gotta make weight." Like, so I go hop on the scale, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So go back to the room, turn on the shower as hot as it'll go, and I just sit in there and it's just a steam bath, and I sit in there for hours, wait, go weigh in, dry off, and I'm so dizzy at this point. I'm like, you know the drill. I'm like so dizzy as I
You're
step on
just
this
hanging on by a thread.
by a thread. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Here we go. Finally, I see the 176, and I'm like, okay, let's go. Got my 2 shakes of Carbolin. I got a bowl of rice weighed out. We go to weigh-ins. I make the weight. And then right there before we even leave the venue, I'm slamming both Carbolins. I'm eating my first real meal of the day, you know, and
And it's
then
just veins everywhere.
then things start to happen, and I'm like, it's good. I made the weight. Tomorrow, it's game over. Like I got to get it. So, the next day comes, and there's like one guy that's like in contention in my eyes. But I was like, I was so much bigger than him and in the same condition, if not better, that I was like, there's no contest here. I mean, like, so they ended up giving me second place there, which I had never gotten second in any show in my entire life. I've never been second except for that time. You know, I'll have to send you the pictures after this, but I had posted the pictures just for fun. And like people just like, I'm never going to disrespect a competitor, but like, my fan club was just roasting and I'm like, hey, it's not really a roast. It's more of just like, you be the judge who wins this shot, and like the back double, you'll see when I send it to you. It's just like, all right, here's the father and here's the son.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how did I lose? There's no possible way I lost this show. So,
and even from a coaching
yeah.
standpoint, you see it with your people. I mean, I see it with my people, and you're just looking at what can only be described as extremely controversial because you're like, Stevie Wonder can see the difference here. What are we doing?
Yeah.
So we also received a controversial second place that year. So
Yep.
it was the theme. So
Yeah.
right after, how many weeks do you have until the next show? Because I know this was a pretty wild rebound to get to it.
Yeah. 2 more weeks until Masters.
So you leave Jersey, you go home to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
What is changed in that little bit of that time frame to get ready to go to Pittsburgh? Because there's not really a whole lot of time to really rebound. Are you just okay, we're back on the normal plan and nothing's changing and just go, go, go? Does the mindset change? Because you're right there at the cusp. Again, this seems to be a theme.
Yep.
Where are you mentally in, okay, we're there. I gotta hold this for an extra 2 weeks.
It was so many emotions. I mean, just filled with like fury and just disgust of not getting the credit that was due. So every workout session was just phenomenal. I felt great. I felt so much better than the Kukla, where I was just feeling awful leading up. I felt so good. Every training session was meaningful. And my goal was like, I was pretty damn lean for Universe, but I'm like, I'm going to come in even leaner. I'm just going to come in tighter and leaner for Masters. And I did. So we get to Pittsburgh, and weighing in this time is like honestly it's easier. We won't say it's easy.
So I don't want to spoil all the fun. So I like let you tell your story.
Yeah.
Light heavies, or do we suck it back down one last time?
Yeah, we're going to do middles again. I had thought about just saying, you know what, let's just come in light heavy, like where I actually belong. But I'm like, no, let's just play the cards. They've obviously liked my middleweight look, so we're just going to bring it in again. So we do the things. Nothing really changes a whole lot as far as like the carb up and that stuff. Just a couple minor tweaks. I do show up considerably fuller and tighter, a little bit tighter. And I was 193 when I stepped on stage as a middleweight at the Masters Nationals.
The human body is so wild that you can do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So tell us, did we win?
Yeah. So
did we get it?
So I look at the lineup and I'm like, all right. I'm trying to think of his name. I want to say it's Ron from Universe. So I'm like, all right, he's out. I'm next in line. Like, all you MFers, like, you got me to worry about again. So I'm like, I'm literally next in line for this crown. So once I see the lineup, I was like, shit, these are some good guys, but it's all just kind of like mediocre. Like, there's no one standing out with like great structure like mine, or like there's no one like super ripped. So I'm like, this is it. This is clear as day. So get called out. They move me to the center. And I'm like, here we go. We're going to battle again. So we battle again, and I get announced in second. And it was like this guy, I don't even know his name. I don't think he's competed as a pro, but he was all like taller, like much, much taller and like all tatted up. And I'm like,
Taller than you?
no, way taller. I mean, like, I'm like
How did he make
5'5".
weight?
I don't know. But he was like way taller. And I mean, if you know anything about the middles, like which you do, all the winners are short guys like me.
No, we don't say
So
shorts. Gravity challenged.
yeah.
Way different. Way different.
So I'm like, oh, great. This guy, I'm going to battle this guy. I look so much bigger because I'm shorter. So I'm like, I got this. I got it. And then when they called me in second, it was just like disbelief. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is just ridiculous. And, at this point, I'm just so disgusted, I think is the word. And I'm like, second again, and like Flex Wheeler always says, Sean Ray, they say second is the worst place to be in.
Yeah, what do they call it? It's first place loser.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I had never been in second. Like I said, up until the universe, I had never placed second in my life in any show. So I'd never gotten that feeling of like, gosh, we're like right there. So I get back home, and at this point, I'm just like, am I really gonna do five more weeks for universe? So, I know Bill Sibilia, and like we had a good talk, and he's like, Chris, he's like, literally, if you show up to North Americans and if you make zero improvements, he's like, you're gonna be in the running. So I'm like, that was all I needed to really continue to press on. Like, obviously I wasn't gonna quit there when I was so close, but it was also, I kind of needed some feedback that I wasn't really getting. So I think once I got that feedback, it was like, all right, I'm registering. We're going to do this. We're going to do this again.
So now we're wrapping up 2022.
23.
Now we're in 23. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you get the feedback, you're registered. What happens in between there? Are we out of the woods with surgeries? Now we
Yeah.
can just
So
focus on bodybuilding.
now we're basically, it's 5 more weeks to Pittsburgh. And now I'm like, what can I improve? So I'm like, well, I'm going to show up leaner again. Like, I know I can get a little bit leaner in 5 weeks. I mean, at that point, we all get there where we're like, I don't think I can get any leaner, which arguably some people that you really can't, like there's some people where it's like,
There's nothing left. Yeah.
you're so shredded there's nowhere to go from here. So I still had a little bit to pull. So we pulled more, talked to my buddy Luis, who's also a judge. And he's like, we just want to see you come in full, man. And I was like, we're battling making the middleweights and coming full. These are kind of two different statements here. So I ended up pushing a lot more food for North Americans because they just really wanted to see like just a full dominant look to win that class.
But you still sucked down for the middles.
I still did the middles for the third time that year.
That third time, now that you because you've just done this couple times back to back, is dropping that extra 11 pounds or so easier because it's familiar, or it still sucks?
It definitely gets easier.
Okay.
Yeah, you just kind of like know, you're like, all right, I can shave 2 pounds today. Maybe I'll shave 1.8 tomorrow. And you just kind of like, I used to call it the descent to hell, because it was like starting at, I want to say I started at like 19, 20 pounds up. And it was, I'd tell Stephanie, like, all right, now we start the descent, the descent to 176, So it was just trying to chip off a little bit every day, get within 8 to 10 pounds, like a day out. And I knew I was right there.
Right. Within striking distance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're in Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
Much better road system. I enjoy Pittsburgh. Not like I don't like Jersey. I love the people of Jersey. I love the East Coast mentality of, if you're an idiot, someone's going to tell you you're an idiot.
Mhm.
Growing up in California, everyone's so concerned about your feelings that no one says anything truthful anymore. Everything is just kind of pussyfooting around things. I'm like, just be direct with me. I don't need the sugar-coated thing. So like when I go to Jersey and I go to the grocery store, I just love watching all the crazy Dominican women just yelling at each other. I'm like, yes. Honesty at its finest.
Yep.
All right, so we're in Pittsburgh. We make weight for the third time.
Mhm.
Now what?
So now I make weight and I'm feeling good, man. I'm just as confident as ever. And I'm like, it has to be, like, this has to be my time. It has to be, and I'm getting good feedback from everyone, from people I trust, and, sending a few pictures here and there. And then, once we go out, there was, I think it was a larger class. I want to say there was 14 or 15. So it was larger than the other shows. And I was like, good, more competition.
Yeah,
Good.
bring it on. Yeah.
I want to beat the best of the best who's ever here. So we go out. They call me right to the center, and I'm like, all right, let's do this again. We're just going to hit every pose, with power. We're going to make sure everything is on. We're going to make sure they see everything. And I knew who I was up against. And like, he was just kind of like, just a lankier, taller guy, kind of like at Masters. He didn't have like the arm size. He didn't have the leg size that I did. So like, I was very, very, very confident when I was posing. So I'm like, I got this. But, from so many shows and just being denied so many times, I still didn't know it was actually mine until we had anything in our hands,
And then, so they announce you. Obviously, it's huge. It's everything that you've
Yep.
been working for. That emotional high of holding that piece of paper. What
Mhm.
is that like? This is the childhood dream. It's a reality now. It's no longer this thing you're chasing because you're holding it.
Yeah.
What's through your mind? Are you relieved? Are you already thinking about the next thing? You're on stage, everyone's looking at you, everyone's cheering. It's this perfect moment. Where are we in our head?
Yeah. It's crazy too. And like, I think of like, Michael Jordan when he'd prepare for his, 6 championships, and you just envision winning, you envision accepting the trophy, or, like a Grammy Award winner giving their speech. You just envision all these things. And like, for me, nothing went how I envisioned it. It was just kind of like, they announced me, and it was kind of just like, I was outside of my body. The video, I'm congratulating, I'm shaking hands with all the gentlemen. I'm accepting the trophy. I'm holding it up. And it's like, I wasn't even there. It was like my body was there. My mind was just floating somewhere else. But to answer your question, relief. It was just like, I feel like it was like I
It's
took the
over.
ball and it's over. I finally have achieved, like, this is the top of the mountain. And at that point too, leading up to it, I told a few close friends, and I'm like, you know what? If I do win this thing, I'm done. I'm gonna just ride off into the sunset. you know, it's my 31st show, and I'm like, I've had such a good career. That's it. Like, I'm gonna end it on a win. And so it was more just like relief. Like, you know what? When we got home, I was like, I don't have to eat eggs and rice this morning, but I want to. I'm gonna choose to. But it wasn't like I was like, 2-3 hours passed by and I don't have to eat this chicken, but I'm gonna choose to.
Yeah.
So it's totally different.
All the stress, all the worry, poof, just gone. Everything is gravy now.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the end.
No, it wasn't the end.
Somehow the bug crawled back in, and you're like, I can't just leave the stone unturned.
Yeah.
So you're in prep, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to talk to you before you got too deep into it and you became a zombie. So I know you're still full of life and your brain's working good.
Yeah.
How many weeks out are you from your pro debut?
All right. So this Saturday, it'll be 3 weeks out from the Atlanta Pro.
That's fun. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to keep getting sidetracked and going back and forth, but I did want to ask. So you've got quite a bit of things removed from the insides.
Mm-hmm.
Did that change the way that you were able to eat for, even off-season related stuff, but definitely how does that affect you when you're peaking? Because, traditionally we're talking about quite a bit of food in a very short duration of time with not a huge amount of fluids at that last little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect the way that you consume your food? Is there limitations?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question that you covered, man. So, and I've talked about it a few times. I'll share a couple things. So, yes, to answer your question, it completely changes the game. So, I can't push carbs like a normal person because it just inflames my stomach so much after like a certain point. And then, of course, once I get inflamed, then you get the gut distension. And then you just don't feel good. You just have like that foggy feeling, the brain fog. You just feel like death. So, the only carb sources I can eat are white rice, cream of rice, carbolin. That's it.
Potatoes are a no-no.
Yeah, can't do anything else. But honestly, it's my favorite carb, so it actually works out to my favor. Fats have always been monumental for me. I figured that out, probably in 2011 when I did 4 shows, and I just started noticing like when I would eat steak or when I have, 5 or 6 eggs, things would just start to happen. I mean, like veins would just start busting out. But then if I'd have, a giant bowl of oatmeal or a giant thing of sweet potatoes, nothing would happen. It would just be like the veins are dormant. Nothing would happen. So I started to take note early on that, oh, okay, my body responds well to fats, even before I had all the surgeries. So what that means is that, yes, it has to be a very timed thing. I can't push, let's say, 1,300 carbs for a normal 200-pound male athlete, which would be no problem. My clients do it no problem, right? So it's just a very timed thing. But then I also have to make sure that I have enough fats in there so that I actually appear full on stage as well.
So do you end up doing like a fat load, which I know that's kind of a 90s related thing. That's not a really common thing now. But when you pick your fats, are you adding fats to the meat that you're already eating? Like, are you adding olive oil and things like that? Or are you just getting your fats primarily from animal-based protein?
It's still primarily from the animal based. Yeah. Before the past 4 surgeries, I was adding a ton of fats to those meals, which honestly, did create a better look for me. Like in 2021, I had, some crazy good looks. But yeah, it is going to be a challenge, and we're always honest. I like to be real with people. Like I'll be doing, like a dry run this weekend, taking pictures, jotting down everything like normal. And I'll do a dry run next weekend with a few changes. I kind of have a feeling, just based off of what I know, how it's going to go. And that'll give me an idea of what I'm going to do when it comes time to load for Atlanta.
Do you generally do a longer loading phase instead of like a 2-day load? Are you like a 3 and a 4-day load because you're just gradually filling out?
Yeah. So as we talked about, you know, since 2021, I've had to do this pull the rabbit out of the hat in, 30 hours, make weight, and then cram as much as we can without getting inflamed. But now I'm so thankful because now I'm already under 212. So now I can just coast in. I can carb up. There's no weight class. I've already made the weight. So now, I can do, I don't think I'll quite do a 3-day load. I don't think that'll work for me, but I think, at least a 1.5, 2-day load will probably be reasonable for me. And that way I get enough pop, because obviously I'm not absorbing everything I'm eating either.
That's exciting, man. I can't wait to see the pictures. I won't be able to make it for it because I got the baby due, but
Yeah.
no, I'll be there. If there's a live stream, I'll be watching it.
Yeah. I appreciate it, man. I'll obviously shoot you pictures as we load, and it's going to be fun, man. I have absolutely no stress. I mean, there's nothing. I'm just having fun, like I think that's why I feel like it's one of my best preps because there's no stress. I'm not delusional into thinking I'm going to win this thing, or I'm literally just doing this for myself because I love it. And, taking that added pressure of trying to make a weight class of a weight that I'm not supposed to be at, like now I can actually show up and maybe show the physique I'm capable of without having to drop all that weight first.
Letting the body actually breathe. Yeah, no, it'll be great. It's gonna be exciting for sure.
Mhm.
Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know I've taken way more than we agreed upon, but I wanted to make sure that the whole story was told because I thought it was just fantastic. And it really showed that anything is possible. And if you want it bad enough, you're going to find a way to make it happen.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I appreciate coming on, man. It's always a pleasure.
Always fun. So, people that want to get in contact with you, how can they get in contact with you? Plug and shoot everything
Sure.
you got.
Sure. Yeah. Instagram is definitely the most, popular. Chris Santamaria 198. Or you can check out, our business, Crushing Limits LLC, on Instagram as well.
And for the people that enjoy our banter back and forth, you can also find Chris and myself on Chris's podcast, which is called
Crushing Limits Unleashed. We are on YouTube. You'll love this, Eric. Even just this morning, I've gotten a lot of great feedback from you being on the pod, so we always appreciate it. People love the stories. They love the radio voice. They think you're a solid addition.
the the voice thing is such a bizarre thing. When I first got internet famous, as we'll call it,
Yeah.
I have screenshots of some of these comments because they were so entertaining. So, a little sidetrack. For those of you who don't know, I got internet famous because I was doing these how-to videos for some of my own workouts. Some of them that were self-engineered by myself, which is a polite way of saying I made some shit up. And then there's some normal how-to videos like how to do a deadlift and things like that. But the way that I would break it down is just in this, low, slow voice with clear explanation for everything. One of the funniest ones I had ever seen, though, and it made me want to frame it in my house because I thought it was so entertaining. He goes, "This guy sounds like Neil deGrasse Bison." I was like, oh, man. And Neil deGrasse Tyson got tagged in like at least 12 of my different videos. So
Oh,
just
wow.
at that point, I was like, well, maybe I'll go on his podcast and I'll talk about the universe because I enjoy stuff like that. But
Yeah.
no, the comments about the voice are always entertaining. I'm just like, I'm just a dude with a beard. I don't know. Nothing special.
Yes, sir.
Well, cool. Well, all right, Chris, I'll let you get back to it. I know you got to eat. I need to eat too. As always, this is the most above average podcast in the galaxy. Until next time, my friends.